XLRI MaggieSpeak 5th Father McGrath Memorial Program in association with CNBC TV 18, an initiative of XLRI alumni.
Welcome to the 5th edition of the MaggieSpeak Father McGrath Debate Memorial Program, a joint initiative of XLRI alumni and CNBC TV 18. XLRI recently celebrated the successful conclusion of the Father McGrath Memorial Debate at the Bengaluru International Centre. Over 70-plus B schools from India participated, with 512 teams and 1,024 students showcasing their exceptional intellectual prowess. XLRI alumni organized this event, underscoring their commitment to fostering intellectual rigor and responsible leadership among future leaders.
Today, my dear friends, we confront crisis on every front, whether it's a political crisis that's engulfing us, parts of the world, demographic crisis, and finally, the environmental crisis. It is at this juncture, in this moment of crisis, Father McGrath shows us the way. The topic that you have chosen for today, corporations and environmental stewardship, is so deeply appropriate for this occasion. It reminds us that we are all part of the complex web of life. And unless we together, as a community, safeguard this, we can unravel this web of life. That is the existential crisis that is staring us in the face. May this debate and the conversation that will go on henceforward may help us understand, to develop a sense of community, which Father McGrath strove for, that this world becomes truly a commons.
The event's theme, Corporations and Environmental Stewardship, sparked heated debates among the top 4 teams, our finalists. These teams presented arguments for and against the motions, with distinguished jury members evaluating the perspectives and points of views put forward. The pre-final stage debate consisted of 2 rounds, with 2 teams competing in each. One team represented the government, arguing in favor of the motion, while the other represented the opposition, arguing against it. The semi-final round 1 of the inaugural debate featured Team Gregarious SG from IIM Lucknow and Team Maverick and Iceman from SPJIMR Mumbai. Their topic was, environmental stewardship is best achieved through government regulation rather than private sector innovation and corporate responsibility.
The inherent purpose of private entities is not environmental stewardship. It is making profits. It's not altruism. It's not corporate responsibility. It's not charity. They're here to make profits. And because of that, that restricts them in the regions that they operate, that restricts them in the opportunities that they operate. Let's take the example of what's happening in Delhi right now. Everyone knows that our air quality index is in a really bad position. And everyone also thinks that solving the problem of stubble burning, replacing slash and burn agriculture by some new age technology will solve the problem. But that's not happening. The issue has many layers. It's decades of community issue. There are livelihood issues. There are income issues. There are so many stakeholders involved, which the private entities are not able to touch and completely comprehend because they are unavailable at grassroots levels. And government is available at grassroots level. They understand these complex challenges and they have a long-term picture in mind, which is something that a lot of private entities lack. My last point is that the government has the power to actually make a difference. They have financial resources. They have the ability to mobilize people. They have regulatory influence, something that private entities lack.
So you brought up a point about the deteriorating AQI in Delhi, and that has much to do with the stubble burning. I would like to say, let's talk about Swaraj in partnership with Mahindra, what they are doing. If you know, they are actually giving harvesters at a very subsidized cost. And that is what, not because of the government action, but they actually want to drive change there and they want to actually be a positive change. Companies are not just looking to meet the regulations, but talk about being an active participants in government forums like discussing with the likes of ARAI, where they're actually giving innovative ideas on how the future should look like. And that is a testimony of the companies not just driven by profit standards, but trying to make real changes in life.
Scriptures dating back to the Indus Valley civilization teach us that it is everybody's dharma to protect the environment. Mata Bhumi Putroham Prithviya. The earth is my mother and I am her son or daughter in this case. This shloka from the Atharva Ved indicates the relation of humans with the environment, akin to that of a mother with her child, implying that one should not harm either the environment or the flora and fauna. In contemporary India, let us take an India-centric approach and talk about what the Niti Aayog has done. They have formulated very stringent policies for wetland management, mitigation of climate change, habitat protection, and protection of forests. Motivated by these interpretations, we propose a conceptualization of environmental stewardship that is integrative and not in silos, meaning that all the stakeholder actions have to align towards a common goal and a shared purpose. For this, we take an inquiry-based positivist approach and will prove that the notion that environmental stewardship can be led by the private sector is normatively flawed, empirically unsubstantiated, and practically infeasible.
The second semi-final presented yet another compelling topic. Ethical decarbonization is the way forward for organizations.
Imagine a farmer near a river who uses its fertile banks to grow crops, generating significant profits. Over time, he fences off the river, barring access to others from the same. Those unable to use the river's resources do not make the same profits and might seek employment at his estate. This creates somewhat of a monopoly, allowing exploitation under the guise of efficiency. As legal systems evolved, they began protecting individuals from such exploitation. Yet, public goods like river, air, forests, etc., are still vulnerable and are still exploited. This led to pollution as an externality. We came up with market-based solutions to solve the same, but these systems would also prioritize economic efficiency over ethics. Here, we are asking if the end justify the means. Decarbonization efforts today involve trade-offs. The trade-offs that are going to risk replicating the very systems that had first created pollution as an externality.
The issue I have with their case is that decarbonization is equated to sustainability. These are two separate things, panel. Decarbonization is about reducing emissions. It's not got nothing to do with the supply chain. It's got nothing to do with where you're sourcing your material from. It has to do with emissions. When we break emissions down, there's scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. That is to say, what is directly generated by the company, what is generated by power purchased, and what is generated by the consumers. So the issue then with PM's case so far is the allegory of the river does not necessarily substantiate what they are trying to say. I'll move on to now our constructives and our definitions. So one thing that is missed out in PM's speech is the definition of the way forward. The motion verbatim is that ethical decarbonization is the way forward for organizations. So the way forward means that is the immediate next step. Secondly, organizations, although implicit, is referred to as private entities. So our main push is that instead of decarbonization, even ethical decarbonization being the need of the hour, it is actually scope 3 emissions and a government ambit to decide what exactly counts as ethical decarbonization.
And the jury, after much deliberations, announced the finalists: Team Gregarious SG IIM Lucknow and Team Optimus of XLRI.
XLRI MaggieSpeak 5th Father McGrath Memorial Program in association with CNBC TV 18, an initiative of XLRI alumni. XLRI MaggieSpeak 5th Father McGrath Memorial Program in association with CNBC TV 18, an initiative of XLRI alumni.
Welcome back to the 5th edition of MaggieSpeak, the Father McGrath Memorial Program, an initiative by XLRI alumni in partnership with CNBC TV 18. Later in the evening, Mugdha Kalra from CNBC TV 18 moderated a discussion with a diverse panel of experts exploring the role of businesses as stakeholders in mitigating the climate crisis.
So let me first start with the corporates and Santosh, gentlemen first. What are the challenges with the regulatory compliance?
The purpose of regulation, if I understand correctly, is to align the private behavior to the public interest. So I think that's
That's a
how
great
the
definition.
whole regulation is about. So it is required. Let's look at the reporting. Since your question is about reporting, let me go into that. Before, and we are at the cusp of things. Last 2 years that the whole reporting arena is moving from voluntary to regulatory.
Right.
And whether it is the EU or whether it is the in India, it is kind of moving in a higher direction in India. The key change there is one, it brings in a higher level of accuracy and reliability. It brings in a higher level of comparability. Now, when BRSR came in, you clearly defined, you put a formula to it, and you told the companies, this is how you report. So it becomes comparable. And then you brought in assurance. So you are, with this regulation, you are getting into an era of a huge amount of sustainability information which is going to be out there. And it has its own risk to the corporates, because the way it is going to be diced, analyzed is a risk to the companies, because they do not have any other way to put it. You cannot put a greater graph, or you cannot have a explanation as to why your performance has gone bad, nothing, because you don't have the provisions for that.
Right.
So that's where the regulation is going to help.
If I have to get the corporates side in, I do know companies spend a lot of time, energy, manpower in these ESG reportage. If I were to ask for a solution of simplifying it, what could be an industry ask?
Today, when the BRSR has come out, the kind of parameters that have been asked, so they are kind of nuanced, right? They're nuanced from what we actually do. So while Wipro does a lot of things, the way the information is asked in BRSR is a little bit different. I'll give you an example. Well-being, for example. So GRI puts well-being as part of occupational health and safety, right? And BRSR looks at well-being in terms of insurance, parental leave, and things like that. So yes, so it's just it's the same KPI, if you will. It's the same parameter, but reported differently. So that puts a little bit of additional burden on corporates. I think all this is good. And while we may experience a little bit of reporting burden and reporting fatigue in the near term, we expect that to sort of level out in a few years. And I think, it's all going to be for the good.
Now, no longer people and departments can work in silos. You can't have a sustainability officer who has been handling finance and is trying to make sustainability sound good on numbers, right? You need people from where the merit lies in them understanding the business. What were some of the thoughts, if you could share with us, that now sustainability also cannot just rest with one department, but it is pan organization?
I think regulation coming in is essentially shifting a baseline where the status quo doesn't work. And of course, change is hard. So everybody will take time to shift. You suddenly, given so many tasks. And, this organization I was talking to, again, a listed insurance company, where to meet all those reporting guidelines, they have to talk to so many departments where the data lies in different formats. And for them to get the data that they need in the format they require is such a big challenge that they reached out to us to figure out how can we change basic culture around how employees think about sustainability.
From your experience, I want to know that this is all listed companies we are talking about, where the bulk of the work is also happening in the disorganized, unorganized, not so organized market, where there are huge companies, there are vendors who are working with these big companies. There are no regulations, so to say, there. Of course, we need regulation. But in your opinion, which are those companies that need intervention? Do we have awareness? What kind of education do they need? Where is this sector standing as of today when it comes to climate change?
So, shifting to manufacturing structure,
Yes.
industry. So, I work with waste pickers, and we have a service organization as a trust, and we also have a company which is providing services. So, when you really look at supply chain, right? I mean, it is unorganized because the cost of making it organized is almost 40% more. That is our experience. So who will bear the cost is the question. It's not about the compliance, not that they don't want to do it, but it's the compliance. So with Hasrudala Innovation, which is a profit organization, we really tried with few companies, brands, and said, how can we make this, sustainable is one, and also ethical and inclusion. So inclusive circularity, how can we bring that? So it has taken many, many, many years, and happy to say that H&M buttons throughout the world is using the waste that we have given. This is the first time in the world that happened. But it has taken so many years. You know, when we first go to the visionaries of the organization, wow, it's a great idea, we want to do it. Then you go to the purchase people. They said, no, I want it cheaper. Then you go to the marketing. No, my clients want it better, right? So how do we navigate all these and then fight it? So we were able to do it. H&M was much faster. What we have done is just an example or a demonstration. It's not a huge volumes, right? But at least we have shown them this is possible. So it is possible to do, but there is a cost to it. There's a premium for this. So who will bear that cost is a big question. Because there's so much competition out there, everybody want to make cheaper, products and cheaper packaging, right? So that is where we get stuck.
Thank you, panelists, for this wonderful, candid conversation.
XLRI MaggieSpeak 5th Father McGrath Memorial Program in association with CNBC TV 18, an initiative of XLRI alumni. XLRI MaggieSpeak 5th Father McGrath Memorial Program in association with CNBC TV 18, an initiative of XLRI alumni.
The grand finale and most captivating discussion of the 5th edition of the Father McGrath Memorial Program MaggieSpeak kept the enthusiastic audience on the edge of their seats. The much anticipated ultimate debate featured the winners of the first two rounds, Team Gregarious SG from IIM Lucknow and Team Optimus from XLRI Jamshedpur. The debate's focal point centered on the provocative question, should the global economy pursue degrowth to reverse the impact of global warming? Let's delve into some of the key moments from this electrifying final debate.
Can the goal of reversing the impact of global warming be achieved without causing a slowdown in the global economy? We respond with an emphatic yes because of three reasons. The first, unlike in the decades after World War II, growth now is led by technology-led productivity and innovation. Second, with the emergence and rapid adoption of renewable energy sources, the use of fossil fuels is drastically reducing. And three, the adoption of sustainability and climate action agenda by the global north and south presents an opportunity for everyone to work together towards shared environmental goals. Let me conclude with a metaphor. Discarding the pursuit of global economic growth to reverse the impact of global warming and climate change would be akin to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Here, the baby being the global GDP, when all that needs to be done is to replace the bathwater.
When we go back to ancient times, as DLO states, that is not something the degrowth model is proposing. What we are doing is we are creating infrastructure, creating jobs that will be working for us. And that does mean some reduction in, let's say, frivolous production. Do we need so many Rolex watches for so many billionaires? Do we need an artisan to spend 600 hours pinstriping a Rolls Royce so somebody can have a nice fancy car? Probably not. that time, that money, those resources can be used in a degrowth model in a much, much better way. Now, going on to the speech of ELO, they state that we are bringing about a slowdown in global economy. This is not something that we said. So we want to kind of clarify what is meant by degrowth. Degrowth is, again, about reprioritizing our focus. Yes, we bite the bullet and say, sure, your GDP might come down a little, but that's why that third stage happens. That is to say, decoupling between GDP and the relative standing of a country. Right now, when we look at the US, people are still impressed. Why are they impressed? Because their GDP is high. But when you go there, what do you see? You see gun violence, you see, as DPM brought up, mental health issues. You see people working without really knowing what they're doing for the planet, for the people, for themselves even. And therefore, the idea of the global GDP growing, of which a good historical exegesis is given by ELO, does not really bring any water to this current debate. Moving to water, the analogy of throwing the baby out with bath water, right? So the baby in this case being the GDP is somewhat a strange analogy to make, because we are constantly talking about the fact that the GDP is not an object of importance. So implicitly, ELO is still stating that yes, GDP is as important as a child. We are saying that this is not the case, and I think we've provided enough reasonable mechanization for why that happened.
After a riveting final debate, Gantavya and Sonali Bora from Team Gregarious SG, IIM Lucknow, emerged victorious, demonstrating exceptional oratory skills. They triumphed over the runner-ups, Bhavish Chaturvedi and Pramit Kumar Das from Team Optimus XLRI Jamshedpur. Gantavya was awarded the title of Best Speaker for the motion, while Pramit Kumar Das earned the distinction of Best Speaker against the motion, further elevating the event's prestige. MaggieSpeak 2024 honored the legacy of Father McGrath, paying tribute to his 6 decades of service at XLRI. The intellectually stimulating debates reflected his lifelong passion for nurturing young minds and inspiring the next generation.
XLRI MaggieSpeak 5th Father McGrath Memorial Program in association with CNBC TV 18, an initiative of XLRI alumni.